Hi.
Hello. In the last segment, Ray Franz dealt with the great changes, and I would say great expansion of the Watchtower under the reign of Nathan Knorr as the Watchtower's third president. Although Rutherford had begun the emphasis on field service, it was Nathan Knorr who streamlined the way this was done around the world, and he who engineered the great expansion of the publishing empire of the Watchtower, to the point where I think when I left the organization it was the biggest private publishing concern on the planet.
So he's a better businessman.
He's just a great businessman. Rutherford was a, well, we won't say.
Okay. Now,
superimposing organizational concepts on scriptural terms is the next segment.
Okay. 6 years after the governing body's discussion of Carl Adams' letter, an elder in New Jersey wrote to the governing body. He had been actively associated for 40 years, and during 35 of these had been serving in a position of congregational responsibility as a servant or elder. In his letter, he expressed his concern about the strong, almost demanding position that is taken about the external ministry of field service. As for his reasons for concern, he said,
well, this is a direct quote from Anthony Fuelo's letter. Interestingly enough, in all the epistles written to the early Christian congregations, I find no field service sections directed to the congregations. Whatever passages directed to the congregations regarding fine works show no evidence of being related to congregational preaching activity. Even those texts repeatedly cited as authority, upon close examination, are not actually dealing with congregational preaching. As a case in point, Fuelo says, the publication for use at Kingdom Ministry School, that is a seminar for elders, on page 44 deals with elders taking the lead in evangelizing. To prove that point, 1 Peter 5 verses 2 and 3 is cited. But while the scripture does encourage elders to be examples to the flock, the scripture nowhere mentions the preaching work or even infers it. The example referred to, apparently, has reference to those things included in the verses, that is, shepherding, being willing, doing so not for dishonest gain, not lording it over the flock, etc. Continuing, the scripture makes reference to subjection, lowliness of mind, and humility. The scripture used as proof is not discussing the point at all. Continuing along this line, the book quotes Ephesians 5:15-16 and 1 Thessalonians 5:12 and 13 to prove that the brothers benefit when they observe elders working hard in kingdom preaching in the field. Again, the words working hard that appear in the latter text and buy out the opportune time as it appears in the former text are making no reference to external field preaching. Rather, the thrust appears to be toward internal congregational service and examples, and that's the end of Anthony Fuelo's quote.
His letter discussed the scriptural teaching in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, that there is a diversification of spiritual gifts and a variety of ministries, all presented as desirable and important. This elder then expressed what many thinking witnesses feel but are fearful to voice, saying,
and again Fuelo directly quoted, this is not to say that kingdom preaching is wrong or unnecessary today, but in view of these facts, should our thrust be so evidently in this direction, making this the main thing kept before the brothers, as we have been doing? Should we be so structured that we put certain field goals before the brothers and make all kinds of arrangements for holidays and vacation periods and other ways placed an inferred responsibility upon them not spelled out in the scriptures? Not to mention the servant body who must arrange, encourage, and lead in this. Should it be our role to constantly be applying pressure upon our brothers, whether subtle or obvious, in our sincere effort to spread the kingdom message? In reality, this is what has been done and is being done. Again, end of quote from Anthony Fuelo.
The letter came before the governing body in one of its sessions. The writer was a long-time, faithful, active elder, and he had given scriptural reasons for his concern. The attitude shown by the governing body was typical. Some questions were asked about the man himself, whether he was known by any of the governing body members. One or two of them did know him, what his reputation was, and the letter was handed back to the writing department for answering. There had been virtually no discussion of either the substance of the letter or, more importantly, the scriptural reasons advanced. It was simply not what the authority wanted to hear.
How familiar is this to us?
Yeah. Yeah. When we were disfellowshipped, this was the same attitude. We had 8 questions that we were asking that were of concern to us and the people we were ministering to as pioneers and elder and publishers. And yet, those questions were never addressed, and they turned the whole thing around to being, the issue is that I gave it to 2 members of my family. And that now became the issue, so we don't have to address these questions.
And then our personal motivation for doing so,
Yeah.
and for later being disfellowshipped and leaving the organization, our personal motivation. So again, moving the issue from, is it biblical, and is it scriptural, is it theological? Is that the way they make decisions? By biblical and theological precedents?
It's as if they're looking for something they can get this man on.
Yeah.
Rather than answer his question.
So I think it's clear to those who have had this experience themselves in the Watchtower that the Watchtower does not use Scripture to establish its policies. It uses Scripture to justify.
Yeah.
Even to the point, as Brother Fuelo points out here, twisting Scriptures out of context to support your existing policies. In the next segment, heavy loads. Why heavy?